Welcome back to Star Wars Fanatic. First, I'd like to give my deepest apologies for sounding a little funny. Last week I had oral surgery. I'm not fully healed, but I couldn't wait to make another Star Wars video for you guys, so please just bear with me. Today we're embarking on a journey that explores a complex and often misunderstood part of Star Wars lore. Sith Lords, who could be considered good, or at least not entirely evil. While most people associate the Sith with the darkest aspects of the Force, hatred, cruelty, and domination, some Sith Lords defied expectations by embracing a different approach. They harness the dark side while maintaining a sense of morality, and their stories challenge our assumptions about the nature of the Sith. In this video, we'll explore Sith Lords like Darth Vectivus, who controlled the dark side without falling into moral decay. We'll examine how they lived, how they used the dark side, and what made them different from more infamous Sith like Darth Bane, Darth Sidious, and Darth Nihilus. By drawing comparisons between these good Sith and their evil counterparts, we aim to provide a more nuanced understanding of the dark side. We'll also reference sources from Star Wars Expanded Universe, Legends, material, and canonical stories to give you a complete picture of where these characters and tales come from. But guess what? This is freaking Star Wars, baby, and I post in-depth Star Wars content like this as a way to not bug my family and friends. So if you're like me and just want to talk about all things Star Wars, hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a single upload. By the way, this channel will be rebranded to The Outer Rim in the coming days. As you've seen, I have changed the way I talk about Star Wars, and I want every aspect of the channel to reflect that. So, be prepared for more great Star Wars content under the new channel name. Alright, first, let's talk about the core beliefs of the Sith Order. To understand what makes certain Sith Lords stand out, we need to first delve into the Sith's core beliefs. Sith philosophy is rooted in the idea that emotions, especially negative ones like anger, fear, and hatred, are powerful sources of strength. Unlike the Jedi, who seek balance and serenity, the Sith embrace emotional extremes to fuel their connection to the dark side of the Force. The Sith Code emphasizes passion and freedom. Peace is a lie. There is only passion. Through passion, I gain strength. Through strength, I gain power. Through power, I gain victory. Through victory, my chains are broken. The Force shall free me. While I think it should be the Force shall set me free, it's whatever, I guess. While the Sith Code promotes personal empowerment, it also encourages a ruthless approach to gaining and maintaining power. This is exemplified by the Rule of Two, introduced by Darth Bane in Darth Bane: Path of Destruction by Drew Karpyshyn, which dictates that there should only be two Sith at a time, a master and an apprentice. The master embodies the power, while the apprentice seeks to surpass them, leading to a culture of betrayal. Yet not all Sith follow this path to its darkest extremes. Some found ways to wield the dark side without completely succumbing to its corrupt influence. Darth Vectivus, the moral Sith. Darth Vectivus serves as one of the few known Sith Lords who do not fall into the depravity that characterized many others. His story is primarily found in Star Wars Legacy of the Force Inferno by Troy Denning. Vectivus began his career as a successful and ethical businessman who later discovered an ancient Sith dwelling on an asteroid filled with dark side energy. Intrigued rather than repulsed, Vectivus delved into Sith teachings. Unlike many Sith, whose motivations are rooted in trauma, revenge, or greed, Vectivus embraced Sith knowledge out of curiosity and a desire to understand the Force more deeply. What makes Vectivus unique is how he applied his Sith knowledge. He continued to oversee his mining operation, ruling over his workers not as a despot, but as a fair leader. He used his abilities to enhance his business acumen, but never at the expense of his employees' well-being. Vectivus demonstrated that it was possible to wield the dark side without letting it dominate one's life, showing restraint in how he used his powers. His moral compass remained intact despite his connection to the dark side. While other Sith might use force lightning or mind control for domination or torment, Vectivus maintained a code of ethics that set him apart from more infamous Sith Lords, unlike Darth Sidious, who manipulated and corrupted anyone who could serve his goals. Vectivus believed in fostering genuine relationships. His story raises an important question about the dark side itself. Is it inherently corrupting, or can it be wielded responsibly? Vectivus's peaceful death, surrounded by friends and family, suggests the latter. Darth Vectivus versus Darth Bane. No, not in a fight, just their moral standings. Now let's contrast Vectivus's measured approach to the dark side with Darth Bane, who epitomized the darker aspects of Sith ideology. Bane's life is chronicled in Drew Karpyshyn's Darth Bane trilogy, with the first book, Path of Destruction, laying the groundwork for his rise to power. Bane was born in the depths of poverty and experienced a harsh upbringing, which contributed to his brutal outlook on life. He believed the dark side was only truly powerful when wielded by the strongest individuals, which led him to establish the rule of two. Bane's philosophy was fundamentally different from Vectivus's. He saw power as something to be seized, held, and expanded through dominance. Bane encouraged his apprentice to grow stronger, fully expecting her to betray and kill him when the time was right. This cycle of master-apprentice betrayal, while intended to strengthen the Sith, often led to an endless struggle for power, resulting in the loss of moral integrity. His life was marked by relentless ambition, and his obsession with gaining power consumed him until his last breath, when his apprentice, Darth Zana, finally defeated him. The stark difference between Vectivus and Bane lies in their use of the dark side. Bane embraced its destructive power and allowed it to consume him, seeing this as a necessary path to ultimate strength. Vectivus, on the other hand, approached the dark side as a scholar might, using it sparingly and with purpose, never letting it overwhelm his life. His restraint and commitment to a moral code present a counterpoint to Bane's unrelenting ambition. Now let's look at Darth Plagueis the Wise, a case of controlled ambition. Darth Plagueis, introduced in James Luceno's novel Darth Plagueis, serves as another example of a Sith Lord who wielded the dark side in a more calculated manner. Plagueis was not driven by a lust for conquest or chaos. Instead, he sought to understand and manipulate the Force on a deeper level, specifically the nature of life and death. His experiments with the Force allowed him to influence the midichlorians to create life and potentially prevent death. While Plagueis did commit many heinous acts, in his quest for knowledge, his motivations were complex. He believed that by mastering the Force to such an extent, he could end the cycle of Sith treachery and bring about an era of stability under Sith rule. This makes him more of a philosopher king figure among the Sith in contrast to Bane's warlord approach. However, Plagueis' downfall came not from overreaching ambition, but from underestimating his own apprentice, Darth Sidious, who eventually betrayed and killed him, as the story goes. Plagueis' controlled use of the dark side resembles Vectivus' approach in some ways, particularly in his scholarly pursuit of the Force rather than outright domination. Yet his disregard for the lives he destroyed in the process shows the limits of his morality. Unlike Vectivus, who showed a consistent ethical restraint, Plagueis allowed his ambitions to erode whatever moral framework he might have had. And now for Darth Revan, a complex legacy and a fan favorite. Darth Revan from Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic provides a unique case of a Sith Lord who oscillated between the light and dark sides of the Force. Originally a Jedi Knight who fell to the dark side during the Mandalorian Wars, Revan embraced Sith teachings in an attempt to bring order to the galaxy. His conquests were brutal, but he had a vision that went beyond the typical Sith quest for power. He believed that a unified galaxy under his rule could better resist external threats. Revan's story is complex because he never fully abandoned his Jedi teachings, even after becoming a Sith Lord. He retained some of his moral convictions, and his use of the dark side was always tempered by his broader goals. When the Jedi Order ultimately captured him, erased his memory, and returned him as a Jedi, he rediscovered his balance between the light and dark sides. Revan's ability to walk this path and later use both sides of the Force in unison is a testament to his unique outlook. He didn't see the dark side as inherently evil, but as another aspect of the Force that could be harnessed for the greater good. Yeah, sorry, I told you guys I'd be talking funny, so please just bear with me on this. It's kind of painful, but I want to get done. I want to get this out to you guys. But this approach puts him in stark contrast with other Sith who sought the dark side purely for personal gain. Revan's understanding of the Force was more holistic than Bane's, for instance, who saw the dark side as the only path to true power. His story illustrates that the Sith ideology does not have to be synonymous with malevolence. It can be also involve a pursuit of order and balance, albeit through unconventional means. Then we have the little talked about Darth Mar, an honorable Sith. Another Sith who defied expectations is Darth Mar. A member of the Dark Council during the Old Republic era, he appears in Star Wars The Old Republic, an online game that provides extensive lore on his character. Mar's philosophy revolved around the survival and strength of the Sith Empire rather than personal ambition. He was committed to ensuring the Empire's stability and saw the dark side as a tool to be wielded for the collective good of the Sith rather than for selfish purposes. Mar was respected even by some of his enemies due to his sense of honor. Unlike Sith, who exploited the weak or betrayed their comrades for power, Mar was dedicated to the prosperity and survival of the Sith Empire as a whole. He believed that the dark side was a means to strengthen the Empire rather than it's simply a path to personal power. Mar's approach stood in stark contrast to more traditionally ruthless Sith like Darth Malgus, who pursued power for its own sake and had no qualms about betraying allies or slaughtering innocents. Through Star Wars The Old Republic, Darth Maul is depicted as a leader who maintained a sense of duty and discipline. His moral code made him different from other Sith Lords. He did not allow his emotions to control him recklessly, instead channeling them in a way that served his vision of a stronger empire. Mar's philosophy of collective strength and self-sacrifice shares some commonalities with Vectivus's restrained approach, but with a more martial focus, prioritizing the survival and power of the Sith as a whole over individual desires. Next on the block is Darth Traya, the moral paradox. Darth Traya, also known as Kreia in Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2, The Sith Lords, offers a more paradoxical example of a Sith who could be considered good in some respects. Her story is deeply philosophical, challenging the dichotomy of light and dark. Traya was a former Jedi Master who turned to the dark side, but she became disillusioned with both Jedi and Sith ideologies. She saw the Force itself as an entity that manipulated and dictated the fate of all beings, and she sought to destroy it as an act of liberation. While Traya's actions were often dark and her methods harsh, her motivations were not rooted in personal gain or a desire for power in the traditional Sith sense. Instead, she sought to free the galaxy from what she saw as the tyrannical influence of the Force, which she believed enslaved everyone to a predetermined fate. Traya's moral ambiguity makes her a unique figure in the Star Wars universe, as she questioned the morality of both the light and dark sides, seeing herself as a necessary agent of change. In comparing her to Sith like Darth Nihilus, who sought to consume all life for sustenance, Traya's goals can be seen as relatively altruistic, despite her willingness to employ ruthless methods. Nihilus embodied the destructive hunger of the dark side, with no higher purpose than satiation. while Treya's intentions, though dark, had a broader and arguably more philosophical vision of freedom. Her story challenges the notion that the dark side must always lead to mindless destruction or tyranny. That brings us to Darth Vectivus, a Sith with noble intentions. Jacen Solo, who becomes Darth Vectivus in the Legacy of the Force series, is a Sith Lord who initially fell to the dark side out of a desire to bring peace to the galaxy. Introduced in Legacy of the Force, Betrayal by Aaron Alston, Vectivus's fall is depicted as a tragic story of a Jedi who sought to prevent future wars by ruling as a Sith Lord. He believed that by wielding the dark side, he could impose order and prevent chaos. Vectivus's motivations were complex. He genuinely cared for the galaxy and believed that his actions, though dark, were for the greater good. He saw himself as a necessary evil, a being who could do what the Jedi could not, ensure peace through control and strength. However, as his journey into the dark side deepened, he became increasingly consumed by his own power and lost sight of his original intentions. In contrast to characters like Darth Sidious, whose ambition was purely selfish, Vectivus's initial fall was driven by a noble cause, even if it ultimately led to tragedy and darkness. The comparison between Vectivus and other Sith Lords such as Darth Maul highlights the difference in their motivations. Maul, from his introduction in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, was primarily an instrument of revenge and hatred, trained by Sidious to be a weapon, or an assassin, if you will. Vectivus, on the other hand, sought to reshape the galaxy's future, believing that his rule could prevent future suffering. While he failed to control the darkness that eventually consumed him, his initial intentions illustrate a Sith who is not inherently evil, but whose ambitions led him down a dark path. When examining these Sith Lords, a pattern emerges that distinguishes them from the more malicious Sith like Darth Sidious or Darth Nihilus. While Sith like Sidious viewed the dark side as a means to absolute power and domination, others like Darth Vectivus, Revan, Mar, and even Darth Vectivus saw the dark side as a tool that can be used for a greater purpose. Their motivations, whether rooted in curiosity, a desire for order, or the pursuit of knowledge, diverged from the more common Sith path of selfish ambition. The key to understanding these good Sith is to look at how they approach the dark side. For them, the dark side was not necessarily a corrupting force, but rather a different facet of the force that could be controlled and directed with the right mindset. While characters like Darth Bane fully surrendered to the dark side's allure and embraced its most destructive aspects, Sith like Vectivus maintained a balance, using its power while keeping their morals intact. When comparing these more restrained Sith to the truly evil figures like Darth Bane, Darth Nihilus, and Darth Sidious, the differences become clear. Nihilus's hunger was a representation of the dark side at its most ferocious and uncontrollable. He was less a person and more an embodiment of destruction. Sidious, on the other hand, was a master manipulator whose ultimate goal was to reshape the galaxy into a reflection of his dark side will, showing no regard for the lives he destroyed. The good Sith, if we can call them that, showed that it was possible to explore the dark side without being completely dominated by it. Their motivations went beyond the selfish desire for power. They sought to use the dark side as a means to an end, rather than an end in itself. While their paths were fraught with moral ambiguity and at times darkness, they demonstrated that the Sith's philosophy was not inherently evil, but could be interpreted in a more nuanced way. As we've seen, not all Sith Lords were embodiments of pure evil. Figures like Darth Vectivus, Darth Revan, Darth Mar, and even Darth Treya represent a more complex view of the Sith Order. Their stories illustrate that while the dark side is dangerous and easily corrupting, it does not inevitably lead to more moral decay if one can master it with the right mindset and purpose. These Sith Lords challenge the traditional notion that Sith philosophy is synonymous with malevolence, offering a different perspective on what it means to walk the dark path. By contrasting these good Sith with the likes of Darth Bane, Sidious, and Nihilus, we see a broader spectrum of Sith philosophy, one that includes scholars, warriors, and idealists, not just conquerors and destroyers. Their stories drawn from Star Wars Legacy of the Force, The Old Republic, Darth Bane Path of Destruction, Knights of the Old Republic, and other Legends material provide a rich tapestry of motivations and moral complexities. They show us that the Force, both light and dark, can be a path of many shades, not just black and white. Thank you for watching this in-depth exploration of Star Wars. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more content on deep lore of the Star Wars universe. Leave a comment below your thoughts on whether a Sith can truly be good, and let me know which character you would like to see covered next. And this is Gerald. Until the next time, the Star Wars fanatic signing off, wishing you all great health, happiness, and peace. Thank you all for watching, and remember, may the Force be with you, always.